Cece. I'm the registered dietitian with Keneva Fitness. September is all about getting back to the basics, so we're going to get back to the basics with our nutrition. My 3 go-to pieces of nutrition tips are as follows. 1, make your plate balanced. 2, eat in season. And 3, consume foods that you enjoy. So let's break that down. When we make a balanced plate, we want to think about 3 crucial pieces to our meal. Half of our plate is going to be fruits and vegetables. That's going to be our fiber portion of our meal. So fruits and vegetables are great because they're high in fiber as well as micronutrients. It's going to help us feel a little bit fuller for longer because that fiber is going to stay in our stomach for a longer period of time. When we consume fruits and vegetables, they're typically a little bit lower in calories, so it helps increase the overall volume of the foods that we're eating. And that's part of the reason why we're able to fill half of our plate with fruits and vegetables. The next portion of our plate is going to be our lean proteins. That's going to be about 1/4 of the plate. So that 1/4, we want to focus on foods that are going to give us good sources of protein, but also are low in saturated fat. Things that are good sources of protein that are low in saturated fat are going to be more plant-based protein options, as well as poultry, fish, and some dairy products if it's a low-fat version as well. The last piece of the puzzle for our balanced plate is going to be our carbohydrate section. So that section is going to be our whole grains, because we want to aim to make 50% of our grains in our day whole grains, as well as starchy vegetables. So unfortunately, things like potatoes, peas, butternut squash, and corn, they don't fall into the fiber section. Those are going to fall into our carbohydrate grain section because they have more starch into them. So they provide more calories and more energy for us. Because it's in that section, the portion size of those vegetables, those starchy vegetables, is going to be a little bit smaller than what we're able to do for those non-starchy vegetables. Now, this is a really easy way to break down what a meal looks like. It can be complicated or a little bit more complex in the beginning while trying to figure out what that might look like and adapting that to your everyday life. So feel free to send me an email with any questions you have about that. But as far as a balanced plate, those are the components of your balanced plate, and hopefully you've noticed that in all of these recipe videos, they've all each had a portion of each component of the balanced plate. So it's a great place to start if you're looking for some more meal inspirations. My next tip I said was eat in season. So as different produce are in season in different times of the year, that's a great chance for you to add more variety into your lifestyle and the foods that you eat. So eating in season can be beneficial in terms of the environment because it's more likely that it's from a local producer rather than being transported by plane or by boat or by truck. So it has environmental impact, and it's also in a more fresh state. So it's picked at harvest time, that's when it's going to have all of its maximum amount of nutrients, versus the longer you wait and the longer that food is sitting after being picked, the nutrient density of it decreases a little bit. Now, you're still welcome to eat foods outside of season, but I challenge you to try to find a way to eat foods that are in season each month, just to increase the amount of foods that you have available to you in your repertoire. And lastly, I mentioned eat foods that you enjoy. You know, there's a lot of great foods that are delicious out there that provide nutrient-dense options and also provide a lot of benefits as well to our health. So we want to focus on enjoying the food that we have, and that's going to make the meal more satisfying, both physically and emotionally. Again, if you have any questions about any of these tips, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to walk you through them and go more in depth with them and personalize them to your specific needs and lifestyle as well. But with that, we're gonna get started with our recipe. So today we're going to make stuffed peppers. It's gonna be a vegetarian option, so we'll still get some protein with it, but there won't be a meat component to it, but you are welcome to turn it into a meat-friendly option as well. This can be done as a side to other foods, or if you want to increase the amount of this that you make, then you can turn it into a meal, most definitely, and maybe add a small side to it as well. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I have my bell peppers, which are in season in September, and we're gonna start by cutting them in half, so then that way we can get them in the oven so we can roast them while we work on the filling. I should let you know that I have my oven preheated right now at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I also have pre-made my rice that's gonna go into this. So I made some brown rice that is gonna be a good starch to go with our stuffed peppers. So we're gonna cut this pepper in half. I've seen people cut their bell pepper in half this way, but I'm personally gonna cut it in half this way. I don't really love messes when I'm cooking, so I usually cook my pepper in a certain way to help eliminate the amount of seeds that spread out all over. So I'll show you my little trick. Up to you if you wanna take it, but this is what I do. So I cut along the line. So I'm just gonna make my incision. It's not as quick to do it this way, but to me, eliminating the amount of seeds that get all over the place is worth it to me. So I follow that line, and then I continue to cut it in half, but I stop right before it's chopped in half. And so by cutting it on the line, I'm just taking the tip of the knife so it doesn't go through the bell pepper all the way, if that makes sense. So the bell pepper is still intact, but now I have the incision, so it's perforated it. And so I can open it up nice and carefully. And from there, I can carve out the inside and carefully finish the incision. Okay, so minimal mess has been made. So we have half the pepper like this and then half the pepper like this. So I'm just going to carefully scoop and carve out the inside of the pepper, so then that way I have full range to stuff it. So I'm gonna get to that, and then I'm gonna finish cutting up my peppers, and we'll log back in and see where our progress is. Okay, so now I have my peppers all chopped up, and I placed it in my baking pan. So they are nice and placed right here. I ended up doing 3 bell peppers, so it's a total of 6 halves, just because that's what I had in space for this particular baking pan, but you can do as many as fit into yours. I'm gonna drizzle it with some olive oil, just so that way when I roast it, it gets a nice flavor. And then we are gonna put it in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. While that's in, I'm going to continue prepping up all the ingredients for the filling. Okay, so now that the peppers are in the oven starting to roast, we're gonna work on our filling. I'm gonna start by dicing an onion. Today I did a white onion. Sometimes I've done red onions, and both are just fine, depends on your preference for flavor. So every day is a little different with what I decide to do, but today was a white onion. So I'm just gonna quickly dice half of this to put it in. Sometimes in the past, I've also taken this and kind of done longer strips of the onion to make it more of like a fajita style onion, and then sauteed it on the stove and then used it as my filling. So it's up to you. Every day is different with how you want to style this and create it, and feel free to make it your own so that it works best for you and for your family. So after this onion is all diced, I'm gonna dice up some tomatoes, and we will mix into a bowl our tomatoes, onions, and rice and beans. After that, you are welcome to add in whatever vegetables you think might work well. I've done shredded carrots in the past. I've also done sauteed mushrooms. Really any vegetables that you like. Spinach could work well too. Any vegetables that you like to add more flavor and intensify the taste as well as increasing the fiber is a great option. Okay, so in my bowl, I have my brown rice and my black beans that I mixed together. When I made my black beans, I added some minced garlic and some lime to add some extra flavor. So feel free to use whatever seasoning or extra herbs and spices that you like when you make your black beans to enhance the flavor profile a little bit more. I highly recommend garlic and lime. I think it tastes very good and it adds a nice little zest to it. I'm just gonna add the onions and the tomatoes to this bowl and mix it really well so that they're all equal parts, and that makes stuffing the peppers a lot easier when it's just all in one bowl, because then that way you just take a scoop at a time. So I'm slowly just adding it all in so I can mix it evenly. And the peppers are just about ready. I cook them for about 10 minutes because my oven cooks things very, very quickly, quicker than most ovens. So you might want to put yours in the oven for maybe a little bit longer, but I always like to err on the side of caution and I put things in the oven for a short amount of time and then I check and see if it's at the right consistency that I want. So the goal of cooking the peppers is just to get it a little tender so that they don't have to cook all the way. And then when we stuff them and put them in the oven, that's when we want them to get to that crispy little browning on the edges. So it doesn't have to be colorful or colored brown when you put it in the oven this first time, but we want it to be tender, so on the softer side. And same thing when you cook your beans and rice. So it doesn't have to be cooked and hot all the way through because it is going to go back in the oven, but you want it to be just a little tender so it's not super tough. So we're gonna get ready to get those peppers out of the oven and start filling our peppers. Oh man, I'm so excited. So I have my peppers all ready. I'm gonna just take a big spoonful of my mixture and take it and put it into the crevice of the peppers. I'm gonna be very generous with it. Also, now we are going to top it with some cheese. I'm gonna use a Mexican blend cheese because this is a little bit more of like a taco vibe that we have going on right here. So I'm gonna use a Mexican blend cheese. I always look for low fat cheese at the grocery store just to pay attention to the amount of saturated fat that I'm consuming. We're gonna add a good amount of cheese, so that's all the more reason to make sure that it is low fat. Just anytime that we can try to reduce the amount of saturated fat is beneficial for our cardiovascular health. So if you're not familiar with what saturated fat does, saturated fat is what builds up as to plaque in our arteries. So when we consume too much saturated fat, over time what happens is that our arteries start to become congested. And our arteries are what's responsible for our oxygenated blood to pump from our heart throughout our body. So what happens is if the arteries are blocked because of the plaque, then those highways are congested. So think about your commute to work. You know, if there's an accident that happens on the highway, you're probably gonna run a little bit late because what's happening? There's congestion. So maybe only one lane instead of 5 lanes are open. So when there's less room for that car to go, the blood moves slower and then the heart has to pump harder to push the blood through. So when the heart works harder, that puts stress on your heart. Now we want to train our body to have good types of stress on our heart through exercise, but that chronic stress on the heart through always having to push and push and push the blood through narrowed arteries from the plaque is going to cause ultimately cardiovascular disease. So if we're able to limit the amount of saturated fat we're consuming, as well as additional health benefits, additional nutritional changes, then we help reduce some of the stress that our heart has to endure later on in life. Okay, so I think I stuffed my peppers enough with the mixture, and I have some mixture left over, so that means that I can even go round 2 and add more peppers and make a second pan if I want to. So they're nice and stuffed. I'm gonna try to lift this. Hopefully I don't spill anything as I show you. Okay, so that's how it's looking. I'm gonna take my low fat, because it's low in saturated fat, cheese. And sprinkle it on. And it's gonna kind of serve as a blanket for everything that we have right here cooking. Okay. So it's gonna tuck it all in, and then when it's cooking in the oven, it's going to melt and be nice and delicious. Okay. So I left my oven preheated at 400 degrees, and I'm gonna stick this in for about 20 minutes and reassess once the 20 minutes go up. Might have to do it for a little bit longer, but I think 20 minutes should do the trick. So I'm gonna get this in the oven. Okay, so they are all done. I'm gonna show you quickly what they look like. So they're nice and crispy. The cheese is nice and melted. So I'm gonna go ahead and serve this to myself on a plate. So I'm gonna take one of the peppers. I will definitely have more than one, but I'm gonna just take one and top it off with some avocado slices. So I went ahead and I cut up the avocado. I'm just gonna top it on here. We'll do a couple pieces. They're nice and thin. And then I have some low-fat sour cream. I'm gonna dollop on top of it. Missing avocado slice. And then I got some salsa. I just bought some store brand salsa instead of making my own today. We're being easy, quick, and efficient. Dollop that on here. And then I cut up a little lemon wedge so I could squeeze some lemon juice on my stuffed pepper. Ooh, and then the lemon juice is going everywhere. Or lime juice, I'm sorry, I said the wrong citrus. And voila, I have a nice taco type stuffed pepper. I am so excited to enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the recipe as well. Again, my name is Cece. I'm the registered dietitian with Kenema Fitness, and I'm always happy to help answer any of your nutrition questions. Have a great rest of your September.